Hi, everybody. This is Rose Odette with the Michigan Innovation Podcast. And today we are going by way of Zoom because we have a Michigan company from the Upper Peninsula joining us today. And as you know, I'm in Cadillac and Cotopaxi is up in Marquette. How you doing today, Cotopaxi?
Hey, doing really well. How about yourself?
Well, I'm doing great, and welcome to our podcast. Let me introduce you. This is Cotopaxi Lyon, and she just started a new company in Marquette. And what she's doing is testing for computer programs. If you need your computer program tested, that's what her company is all about. But like we do on all of our podcasts, well, let me repeat the name of her business though, and that's Lyon Quality Assurance. So we're going to get into Lyon Quality Assurance and how innovative that is. But first, we're going to learn a little bit more about Cotopaxi and find out what's your story and how did you end up in Marquette? I know that you mentioned that you are from the Lower Peninsula. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I ended up in Marquette about 3 years ago. I had moved back to Michigan from the East Coast. I was in Boston and then Vermont. And I really missed real winters and I missed really good mountain biking. And Marquette is just such a fabulous place to be. We have great winters up here and we have some of those amazing mountain biking in the country. And then being right on Lake Superior. And I had heard that Marquette was a kind of growing tech zone. So it was exciting to be part of that growth. So I moved up here when I was working remotely for a company in Traverse City, actually. And then this past January, went out on my own and started Lyon Quality Assurance.
Oh,
So quite the
fantastic.
journey.
Well,
Yeah.
what were you doing out on the East Coast out there?
I had originally gone to college out in Maine. So I kind of moved out to college. I actually studied abroad in New Zealand and stayed there for a while. So it's been
Wow,
hopping
that's
around
interesting.
quite a bit. And then I moved out to Boston because my sister had just had a kid. So I was working for a tech company in Boston
Oh,
for quite
fantastic.
a while out there. Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. Wow, you are a traveler.
There's been a lot of hopping around for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And you went to college or university in Maine. What part of Maine?
Waterville, Maine. It's like kind of dead center for the lower part of Maine. I was about to do the hand, but it's not Michigan, so I can't show you the hand.
I've been out there before. I went to a couple of conferences on the Bar Harbor.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I
Bar Harbor's
remember
good.
when I was there was a Cadillac Mountain. And
Yeah.
it's the same explorer from France that our city here is named after,
Oh, funny. That's really
Cadillac.
funny.
Yeah,
Nice.
so he got around. He
Oh
was
yeah.
Maine, there's a Cadillac Quebec there. He's all over. And I know Marquette has an awful lot of history. Like I said early on, we were just up in the UP, and my goodness, it's so beautiful. We were at the Sulaks, and my son-in-law went up to Marquette. He has a new road bike, and
Nice.
he wanted to see, he loves Marquette, and
Yeah.
that's why we're heading back up there in a
Nice.
couple of weeks to see some color.
Yeah. It's gonna be so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. Well, that's a very exciting story. You've gone to all over the world, New Zealand, out east, and now you're up in Marquette. So now, why did you start your own business? Are you like me, a glutton for punishment?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, especially right now. I had spent the past 4 years as the COO of another software testing company. And I really saw how often we were all in so much of startups, as well as my previous company, pushed to grow in a way that wasn't sustainable for our humans and really didn't feel like we could do the best quality work. And in quality assurance, it felt a little bit hypocritical to feel like we couldn't. Um, I'm also really passionate about creating spaces for families and employees to thrive, and knew that there was a different way of being than most kind of corporate businesses. And 2024 just felt like the right year. I had a personal loss the past year that kind of helped me rethink what I wanted my life to be and think about what things could be. So yeah, January came and I went out, and then I had two fabulous team members join me in March, and it's
Wow,
been
that's awesome.
so
You can't
great
do it
ever since.
alone.
Exactly. So yeah,
Yeah.
and having the right people at the start has made such a difference.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, you wanted to start with a new, fresh approach to business, family centered, and that, and not so corporate. It sounds like you have a passion for quality,
I do have a passion for quality across the board.
quality and quality of life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you can't have a two, a quality of life and a quality focus on your product.
Yeah.
So why do you think that this whole quality space needs reinvention? I remember, I've been around a long time and I used to work for IBM Corporation, and back in the day of the whole quality initiatives coming over from Japan, I mean, this is way back when, and we would have quality circles, and I know IBM won the Malcolm Baldrige Award for quality the year I was working with them in Rochester, Minnesota. But I haven't heard a lot of focus on quality like we used to back in the 80s. Like, so I'm wondering, tell me why you think this is a time for reinventing and improving in this whole quality space.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Right now, quality assurance is really, at least in the tech space, is really kind of thought of as an afterthought quite often. It's like a nice to have that people will get to when they have the budget, or it's the last step before release, but quality isn't integrated throughout the software development lifecycle like it should be. Um, and so many people actually don't know about quality at all. I can't tell you the number of founders who don't know what quality assurance is. They or their product folks are doing all their testing, but they're not trained professionals. So part of our mission is to not just deliver great services to our clients, but also change the conversation about QA and to help ensure that quality is integrated throughout that life cycle for all clients or for all companies, and to start helping folks know about the importance of QA outside of just kind of the corporate world, but thinking about individuals and getting into tech and what that could look like, that it doesn't just have to be going straight into coding or product. It could also be getting into QA and what an important world that is.
Oh, right. And so with that, how do you how what are some of your innovative ideas around improving the quality ecosystem?
Yeah, it's kind of funny to talk about, but really communication and relationship-based work is really one of the big differentiators. We also talk about in this world of AI and automation, there's so much push to just have all automation, and manual software testing isn't necessary anymore. And one of the things that we talk a lot about is the importance of having that manual piece, so they can be that bridge in communication between developers and between product, to ask about, forward thinking about those weird use cases that, quite often we're going to design a product in the way it should work, and then our users, use it in like 47 different ways. So instead of having a specific kind of thing that we're doing differently, we're just talking about making sure that we actually partner with the whole team and that we are able to ask those hard questions up front. So we're able to kind of get upstream in the development process.
So that sounds very interesting. So when you're in the upstream in the development process, when do you want to join I know there's the high level design that
Mhm.
that goes on when the first, you get the idea for the new application, or the customer has a requirement and you start high level thinking, how will we deliver this? And then we get into some of the storyboards and we figure out like what who would do what and what users will
Mhm.
look like, and and then there's that whole application development process. Where do you want to join the application development process at?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we really think about ourselves as serving as the voice of the user. So we're not doing all the UX research. We're not the ones going out and asking those questions at the beginning. But if we can be brought in at those initial shaping meetings for new features, it makes such a difference in actually like speeding up development life cycles, reducing cost, because we can ask those hard questions and we can help advocate to make sure that everybody's on the same page in a way that if we're you know, just now seeing a new feature when we're testing, we don't have the chance to ask those questions before it gets developed. So one of the things that we
Right.
talk about is that by bringing QA upstream, it's actually proactive and it's stopping problems from happening instead of finding the problems and then them having to be fixed and
Right.
retested.
So for the listener of the podcast that are a little bit not as familiar with the whole application development process, I wondered if we could just define what quality assurance is in when you're writing a new program and you're creating a new system. What is application or what is quality assurance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So quality assurance is actually a pretty broad thing. What we do specifically is manual software testing quality assurance. So quality assurance is coming in and making sure that there are verification steps throughout the software development process, and that we're not only making sure that it functions as intended, but it functions in a way that a user would use it.
Mhm.
Automation is a really great piece for this as well. What we focus on is that manual piece and helping ensure that, you know, you as a user, let's say your user is checking in people for primary voting, right? And they're maybe 80 years old and they're a volunteer and they're in a Wi-Fi hotspot, that we're helping bring that experience to light in, you know, early on in the development process to make sure that all those scenarios are thought about. So if they're frustrated and they're mashing that check-in button 7 times, what's going to happen?
Mhm.
So manual software testing is so much more than just checking to make sure that the acceptance criteria, the things that we say need to happen, but also
Right.
it happens in a way that a user would seamlessly use it. Does that
Ex-
kind of answer
Oh
that
yeah,
question?
absolutely. You know, I've developed electronic medical record software, and when we would go through the testing, we had to take on all sorts of personas.
Yeah, for
We
sure.
had to be the doctor, then we had to be the nurse, then we had to be a clerk, maybe in medical records, or maybe a visiting attorney that's trying to, capture different pieces out of the medical record, or a biller. So
Mhm.
there are a lot of different personas or people
Yeah.
that have different needs, especially for our product, which was this electronic medical record, and every single person in the hospital would touch it. So I sure wish you would have been around when I was doing my testing, because we had a lot of work in. Do you develop test scripts?
Oh yeah, we have very yeah, I just had a meeting about some test scripts. We develop very extensive test scripts and we write them in Gherkin to make sure that they're human readable so everybody knows exactly what we're
What
testing.
is gherkin? I guess.
Gherkin's just a syntax for how to write them. It
Okay,
can
so
easily be pulled into automation.
awesome.
And,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I think is important to call out is that it's testing for those personas, and it's also, you know, especially with like medical records, we're verifying that data is stored correctly and that one user is not seeing data that they shouldn't be able to see. And those
Right.
kind of pieces I think are often overlooked when you think about what
Oh,
QA
that is so
is.
important. I know
So,
that we had audit trails that were tracked, and they were based on a person's user profile.
mhm.
For example, we would never allow a biller to look up a patient with a zero balance.
Yep.
And or if someone came into the emergency room, uh, you know, they get to see everything because they never know what they're going to, who's going to walk in. But then you have, HIV, which is very, very protected. That's very confidential. So the testing for medical records is very, very sensitive. But you bring up a very important point when your user is a volunteer who is not as computer literate, let's say, as someone who sits in front of a computer all day long at work, but they're volunteering. That's a whole different person. And so it's important that you get in there early, so that you can anticipate. And I bet that helps you write the test scripts. So if you
Oh,
already
absolutely.
know the scenarios
Yeah.
of why the systems are being made. So what makes you and your team different from other, I know you probably have a few competitors in the marketplace.
We certainly do. Yeah.
What makes you different?
So one of the things that we often find, and so many people think poorly of QA because they have had really bad experiences with QA. Quite often, quality assurance teams will come in and they'll be given the requirements to test against, and they'll exclusively test against those requirements, and they won't think critically about what's missing, what's out of date, um, any of those pieces. And what kind of is one of our differentiating factors is that we come in and um, we don't really trust anything. So we come in, we see those requirements, and we think, okay, we know that this doesn't match a requirement for a feature over here. We need to verify which one's correct. So we'll go ask that question. Or, hey, this user scenario is missing. We need to verify the user scenario. And all of our team is hired based on our communication ability. Because so much of this work isn't just about the testing, it's about communicating with other teams and making sure that they understand the importance of a bug that's found or why we need this scenario covered. Um, so when we come in and work with our clients, we actually work really closely as partners with their development and product teams to ensure that the developers have the support that they need, product has the support they need, and that we're not kind of an adversarial last step throwing bugs back over the wall, but we're helping stop those in the first place.
Absolutely. So you're preventative.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
you really help them so that they don't have to go back and rewrite if the
Yep.
sooner that you get engaged. If I were to look at the application development, let's say the old waterfall, where is your ideal spot to meet the team?
That's a great question. And Rose, the ideal is different from I guess one of the other differentiating factors is that we'll fit in wherever a client needs us. Some clients they want us to be brought upstream as far as possible. Other clients really want us to be kind of this last piece verifying. And what we find is that if we can get our foot in the door, we can help make quality changes. So where we want to be is not always where we get to be, and it's yeah.
True. Yeah, the customer's always right.
Yeah, there is
Yep, the
that.
customer's always right. There's no
Yep.
doubt there. And I know the sooner the better. What is different about your team though? I know you said that I think you mentioned you hire for communication capabilities. And that's really difficult one of the things always am a big advocate for is Toastmasters.
Mhm.
And I always encouraged all my programmers and installers to go to Toastmasters so that they could feel comfortable speaking in front of people and impromptu, because a lot of times the programmers and the developers are very left-brained and they are very gobsmacked. They have a very difficult time communicating. And so I agree with you that communication is key, especially when you're creating something brand new, so
Absolutely.
that everybody's on the same page. How do you hire for that? That sounds like a interesting requirement for a job interview.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we really believe that we can teach the QA piece. We're actually working on training programs right now that we're going to share with the public, but we believe that we can teach the QA piece, but what can't be taught or what is harder to teach is communication and agency. One of the things that we're looking for is agency as well. So much about QA is advocating for what's right and being able to believe in your own voice and that you're willing to step up.
Mhm.
So our hiring process is pretty extensive, and a lot of the time it focuses not so much on your technical skills. I mean, those are very important,
Yeah.
but more on how do you communicate. How do you engage? We like to have interviews that are not our whole team, but are about kind of 4 different people from our team. So folks have a chance to meet folks from different kind of areas in the company
Mm.
and see how that engagement goes as well.
I'm sure
Um,
your clients really appreciate that,
yeah, absolutely.
because
And
when you walk in the door, they are really trusting you to really carry the ball from from here to there. And it's important that you, because who you're walking into are those programmers. And so
Absolutely.
they have to sort of pull information out of them when they, they're very intelligent, but sometimes it's very difficult to, how do you find the documentation? Do you see the documentation very, are you, I always had a problem with getting the proper documentation, so I actually knew what was going on.
That's
Is
it.
that improved?
That's a great question. It depends on the company. No, would be the answer. I can't tell you in my past job how many times folks just didn't have any documentation.
Right,
We heard all the time, we don't have time to document, which
right.
to us is actually, I mean, I could go on for hours about not having documentation. It
Yep,
just has so many poor downstream effects, right?
yep,
We really, one of the things that I love about this new about Lyon QA is that we are able to choose the clients that we want to work with.
yep,
And actually, documentation was one of those pieces. It tells us so much about how they view the development process and communication. So we ask questions about documentation. We want to make sure that there's one source of truth that everybody knows, that source of
right.
truth is updated when changes are made.
Yes.
Um,
I think that you are really onto something. I think you're into onto something really big, and I think that it's so needed. I can tell you that. And when you look at, I know you just started, and do you, where do you see your vision? You sound like you're creating some classes on quality
yeah.
assurance, and you're hiring its team, and what's your future vision and mission for
Yes.
Lion QA?
So I was laughing the other day about this. I about this time last year was training somebody and made a statement about I think my goal in life is to change how QA is viewed in the world. And I was thinking about how that has tied in so much to Lion QA. So one of the things that we want to do is really start changing the conversation around QA for organizations as a whole. But what we also want to do, like I mentioned before, is help introduce quality assurance both to folks without a tech background as well as even, I mean, most computer science programs have one, if any, QA courses in the whole like 4-year degree. So we want to make sure that there's some QA training for developers, for folks getting into QA. There's not a lot of QA training out there at all, and a lot of it's pretty basic, if not bad. It doesn't touch on empathy, it doesn't touch on communication. So one of the things that we've been working on and we're excited to be rolling out is some QA training and trying to work with community partners both up in the UP and in the Traverse area to bring that to folks who are looking to change careers and get into tech. I know that right now is not the best time to get into tech, but it's so much of a lower barrier to entry than coding. I think we all have all these thoughts about like coding so hard that stops us from going to take those coding classes, that we're hoping that QA can open those doors for folks to get into tech. Maybe they're going to love QA and stay there, or maybe they're going to transition to product or development. And with all of that, we want to keep working with our clients and make sure we're doing really high quality assurance. We do really love that. And we're also excited about this like education piece as well.
Absolutely. A question in my mind is to support your focus on quality assurance, are there corporate and mandated governance coming in? Does Sarbanes-Oxley require any QA regiment?
So
I know that the PHI in healthcare, they require quality. So I know that when I worked in the UK, we worked with information governance
mhm.
a lot, was very critical to the whole application development process there. So when you're out looking for clients, do you resonate well with those that are being kind of like the government's looking over their shoulder to make sure they're compliant with
Absolutely.
these
And
different Sarbanes-Oxley,
yeah,
HIPAA? the
And
High Trust Act.
And with that, we do, like we were saying before, really extensive test documentation and test scripts. So we have all that documentation that those clients then can point to and say, yep, we did all this QA.
Wonderful.
One of the things that we're also doing is accessibility testing, which is really huge right now. And there's a lot of compliance around that most companies are kind of new to. And that's such a needed area. It's, accessibility should also be part of development from day one. But quite often, when we develop new products, we don't think about making them accessible for everybody. So that's been an area that we've been really thrilled to kind of grow and see where that goes too.
Well, can I ask you a little bit more about your classes?
Mhm.
Are these classes you're developing for quality assurance, will they be available outside of an engagement? Are
Yeah,
you, so you're creating educational content for,
absolutely.
so let's say that I do have a big, like I have 50 people in IT and I have 10 guys and gals that do my QA, and they need to get on the same page. We could, once your product is ready for your QA classes, I could acquire a class from you that I could deploy within my
Yep.
department.
Yep,
Wow,
absolutely.
that's so
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank you.
That is an amazing vision and it's so needed. And I love the way that you articulated the career choices and how you're providing a, another avenue into the information technology environment.
Yeah.
And I think that for people that, I go back from my experience, a lot of nurses love, some hate computers, but
Mhm.
some love computers.
Mhm.
The ones that love computers, they're a little rare. Most nurses don't like computers, but let's say 20% of them just love them. Of course, they became the user that was the super user, is what we
Yep.
call them. And they were the ones that would actually be the customer side of the testing, and they
Yeah.
would really put us through the paces.
Yep.
So, and she or he never had a computer class in her life or his
Yeah.
life, but they loved tech and they were our best quality testers.
Yep.
So I agree with you that, this is a great career for someone that, maybe they're not very, Python or all those really difficult C++ or whatever programming
Well, and
languages.
I
But
actually, in college, I studied anthropology. And when I graduated from college, I was a preschool teacher for years. So I come from an education background and have been one of those people.
okay,
I actually did web development in high school. So I had a little bit more kind of leg up there. But I've been able to kind of see firsthand what that transition is like. And those critical thinking skills and loving to solve puzzles and break things, that and communication are just what's so key for QA that that you don't need to be able to write in Python.
right.
But if you can understand the application and figure out how to tear it apart and think about the different users and document, obviously, like be really, really detail oriented as well, you're
Right,
gonna be a
right.
great tester.
That's so true. I think this is so exciting. How do you support your employees?
Yeah, so we when I started Lyon QA, I decided that we had an opportunity to be different and to be a model for how organizations could be different. There's so many there's so many articles and conversations right now about remote work and all of that. And
You
we
mean like pros and cons?
yeah, and what I feel like so much of it is about power and control of employees.
Okay.
And we have chosen to do a 32-hour work week. People have completely flexible schedules. We have 2 meetings a week that folks need to be on. And then if there's a client meeting, of course, that. But what we talk about is that we trust our team. We hired a team for a reason. And that we believe in the work that they do and want them to feel like they can have a whole life outside work. Work shouldn't be their life. And it's been absolutely amazing to see how engaged our team is, how well we communicate async, and how, like, what a cool model it is for how we can be different. There's studies out there, and a couple of organizations are doing that 4-hour work week, and it makes such a difference. So it felt like, this is a time that we can test it out and see what it can be like as a new company that's harder or that's easier to do than making change as an existing company.
So how are your employees taking to this?
They love it. And we've had really great conversations about the quality of work that's done too, in kind of in the more typical corporate prove your work environment. They felt like they weren't able to do as good of work as they're doing now because they were proving their work along the way, versus now if they can go work in like independent chunks of time without having to prove what they're doing and come back, they could have integrated that material better. And if they're doing training documents or if they're doing testing, created better material for the client or the future person as well. And that to me has been a really just a great indicator of how different it can be, and how it's not just great for the employee, which it's so, I mean, watching people be able to have an actual life is great, but it's also really beneficial for the company. And that seems like such an important thing.
It really is. And so it's a different model.
For sure. Yep.
It's a
Yeah,
very
we took a
innovative
gamble. It's a different
approach.
model.
Very
Yeah.
different model, and it's super innovative and sounds like you're onto something. I know that uh, no one likes somebody looking over their shoulder and making sure that, it can get, and I've heard that they're even watching, the remote workers are being watched,
Yeah.
how many times they touch their mouse
Right.
or
So
something.
invasive. Yeah.
Oh, it's how, that's just not very respecting the individual, we need to respect our, each person. And I'm so happy that you're creating this ecosystem where people can do that. And it does take a special individual, though, I would say. From what you said, you need very good communication
Yeah.
skills. They need agency, which is a very interesting word. I love words. And agency, when you said they need to have agency, can you put some flesh on that straw man for me?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are kind of two sides to it. One, working with a client when we're doing QA, our job is to advocate for quality. And sometimes that means telling the client that they shouldn't release yet. Sometimes that means going back to a developer a second time and saying, hey, you still didn't understand. Um, and that takes belief in oneself and confidence in what you're presenting. And that's kind of what we're talking about with agency. And then internally, I really believe that our company is as fabulous as we are because each person has that agency. And some of my favorite times are when we're in meetings and my team tells me no, and they tell me that I had a bad idea. And to me, that shows that agency too, right? They believe in what they're bringing to the table and that it
Right.
matters.
Yes,
And that's so important for the work.
absolutely. Well, that's very trusting, and I think that's fantastic. Well, we're on the Michigan Innovation Podcast, and it sounds like you started in Michigan, you went out east, you're back
Yeah.
in Michigan. So talk to me a little bit about the Michigan Innovation uh, ecosystem, and how we can help you grow, how we can support you as a startup in Michigan, and just how's it going?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, honestly, as a startup in Michigan, it's been harder than we expected. Especially up in the UP, there's a lot going on in like downstate Michigan, but in terms of tech, but not up in the UP. So trying to find resources has been kind of challenging. Um, but honestly, building connections and community, that's one of the things. I laughed when I moved back to the Midwest because I loved New England, but I am a Midwesterner at heart,
Yeah,
and
me too.
Midwesterners, we're here for each other. And so building community around that. I've just been working with a woman up here on building a monthly tech meetup in Marquette, and it's been so fun to see the excitement around that and how pumped people are. And so I think one of my kind of missions personally is to help grow tech communities in general. I was part of starting the Women in Tech group in Traverse City, because I've felt multiple times that I didn't have the resources I needed or didn't have the connection, and I knew I had the means to be able to figure that out. And I think about folks who don't have that, if they're just trying to get into tech or if they're trying to start a company, what that experience is like. Um, so yeah, I think more of us being there for each other and and being loud about it. I think it's important
Absolutely.
to hear that. Yeah.
Well, I think that they're very fortunate that you moved to Marquette because I'm sure you're not alone up there. You just
No.
need to find each other.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know that I think Marquette, Northern Michigan University
Mhm.
is there, and they must have, innovation. I know that Lake Superior State has an innovation
Yeah.
track, and I know that the nice thing about Michigan, we have such a great education
Yeah.
system with the different universities, and I know there's three really great universities in Northern Michigan. And have they been a resource?
They have, and we actually hired our first intern from Northern. He was a cybersecurity student, and my intent when I first went to meet with him was just to hire him or to interview him about just a cybersecurity internship. And then he was so fabulous that he's now a QA intern, and he is
Yay.
like very much as much a part of the team as everybody else. And that to me speaks to what Northern's kind of producing with their students.
Excellent.
So it's been really fun to kind of, yeah, be here
Excellent.
with them.
Yes. I think that it's just making me get a little bit teary-eyed because I just love when you can support the younger generation, because that doesn't just, it helps you today, but it will help Marquette in the future.
Absolutely.
Because just like we had a chat about one of my previous employees, and now he's got
Hmm.
some startup out in California
Yeah.
doing some really cool stuff with AI, and he started with me as an intern,
Yeah.
and then he stayed with me a couple 3 years, and now he's off to the
That's
races.
awesome.
And I had a little bit to do with that.
Yep.
And maybe he'll come back to Michigan someday, but I'm sure he's out in the world doing good stuff.
Yeah.
But you're helping the community, which is super important. Well,
Yeah.
God bless you, and I really enjoyed having you on. Can
Thank
you
you.
give me a may I invite you to come back in, let's say, a year or so,
Yeah, I would love that. That would be
back to
fabulous.
see how you've grown and how
Yeah.
things have changed?
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, this has been a pleasure. And any last words from you?
Nope, but I so thank you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate
Oh,
it.
absolutely. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Goodbye.